The term mild is misleading when the bar is hospitalization and death. No, that's not misleading. That's very often how we characterize disease. If you didn't go to the hospital and you didn't die, and you recovered within a few days, that's pretty mild. That's pretty mild. It says, even mild cases can result in long COVID, which includes a range of conditions like cognitive impairment, POTS, and chronic fatigue. This isn't to be a downer or induce fear, just a reminder we need to be careful. N95s in crowded indoor spaces like stores. And if you do get it, it's key to take care for yourself and rest. Okay, so first of all, I noticed that you were in Florida. I noticed that. And you were at, like, giant events with other humans breathing on them, which is how you got Omicron in the first place. Also, does she have any stats on how many of these cases result in long COVID from Omicron? She does not. It is to induce fear. That is the entire goal, is to induce fear. But the real thing that she is saying is that even when you're not all that sick, you are super duper sick. This is where she's about to go. The idea of forcing people to work just 5 days after symptoms start is sociopathic and 100% informed by a culture that accepts sacrificing human lives for profit margins as a fair trade. Okay, so first of all, no one is generally forcing people to go to work if they are heavily symptomatic from COVID. Right? If you're like hacking up a lung in other people's face, people generally don't want you at work. But as a general rule, the idea that people are dying in mass numbers because they are going to work after 5 days of quarantine from COVID is insane. That's crazy towns. First of all, Omicron is a very unserious form of the disease, generally speaking. It is 90% less deadly than Delta. Second of all, if you're young and healthy, as AOC presumably is, she was never going to die from Omicron. Thirdly, the measurement of 5 days after symptoms start is the minimum. Okay, if you have symptoms that continue, you are supposed to stay home. Finally, the symptoms that are associated with Omicron very often are asymptomatic or so mild that you don't even test for them. A huge number of people probably had Omicron and didn't even know it. That's not sacrificing human lives for profit margins. And what is she even talking about? And by the way, if you took her really, really seriously, that you could never, quote unquote, sacrifice human lives for profit margins, et cetera, we should ban cars, right? Because the fact is that a huge number of people on the roads kill each other every single year in car accidents. The reason we allow people to drive at high rates of speeds on freeways is because people need to go to work. It turns out that part of living a fulfilled life is being able to obtain products and services at a price that you prefer to pay. Part of that ensures that you have a labor force, and part of having a labor force means that you have to take risks in daily life. But according to AOC, you should never have to take a risk in daily life. Ever, ever, ever. Sacrificing human lives. I'm sorry. Who is sacrificing human lives by going back to work after 5 days of Omicron? Who? Also, I will note that for the vast majority of human existence, everybody went to work sick. Just gonna ask you in the audience, have you ever gone to work having a cold? Ever? Like you just took a Dayquil and you went to work? The answer for 100% of people here is yes. And the answer is not yes because you were forced to work, because if you didn't work, you were gonna get fired that day. It's because you didn't feel like taking a sick day. And also, because you know what is not all that much fun? Sitting at home for long periods of time and not working. People generally work because, believe it or not, most people want to work. Depression rates among the unemployed, particularly the long-term unemployed, are about 3 times the rate of the depression rates among the employed. Having a job is a fulfilling part of life for the vast majority of people, which is something that the left refuses to acknowledge.